Human brains have a very unsettling superpower. They're incredibly good at collecting and tightly holding onto things that sound true. No verification required, no credible sources needed. All it takes is someone saying it confidently. Bonus points if there's an infographic and your brain nods along like a bobblehead on a car dashboard. And just like that, hand-me-down life rules take root in your head and survive longer than CAF Wi-Fi. Wellness culture is prime real estate for this. Lines like, drink 8 glasses of water a day, get repeated so often they start sounding like a law of the universe. Oversized water bottles, hourly measurement lines, apps that ping you every 60 minutes. Suddenly it feels like your body is waiting for an end-of-day audit. But what if your body doesn't actually work like a checklist? And if we've been taking care of it the wrong way this whole time? What happens next? Story 1. Your body is not an office plant. Imagine your body is a sad little office plant. Exactly 8 glasses of water a day is the rule. Miss 1 glass, the leaves droop like your motivation at 4 p.m. on a Monday. Drink 1 extra roots, rot, HR calls you in for a quick chat. Sounds ridiculous, right? And yet somehow we've decided the human body, a biological system more complex than the newest iPhone, works exactly like that. Wellness culture loves neat systems. 2 glasses in the morning, 3 at lunch, 2 in the afternoon, 1 at night. Done. Checkmark. Like a productivity checklist. But your body does not care about your hydration app or that fancy water bottle that costs half a month of gym membership. It cares about what you ate, whether you ran or laid flat, how hot it is outside, and whether your kidneys feel like working overtime today. Your body is not a plant that needs watering at a precise dosage. It can talk, and what it says is very simple: thirst. So if 8 glasses a day is starting to sound a little suspicious, you might want to ask yourself, how many other obvious truths are just waiting to get exposed next? Story 2. Coffee and its very unfair reputation for dehydrating you. A typical American morning starts with a survival ritual: coffee. Not the sip and savor kind. The drink this so I remember who I am kind. One hand rubbing your eyes, the other gripping a cup the size of a mop bucket while your brain is still buffering like bad Wi-Fi. Then out of nowhere, a scary whisper appears. Coffee dehydrates you. And just like that, the guilt spiral begins. Drink coffee, must drink water to cancel it out. Drink water, feel like you betrayed caffeine. A moral tug of war, not unlike eating a burger and promising yourself starting tomorrow I'm healthy. Here's the part that's actually funny. Yes, caffeine is slightly diuretic, very slightly. But coffee is still water. For regular coffee drinkers, the body adapts so fast it barely reacts at all. 1 latte is not turning you into the Sahara Desert. But wellness influencers need drama. The scarier it sounds, the better it sells. Because if coffee really caused serious dehydration, America would currently be populated entirely by people as dry as raisins. Story 3. Gum and the 7 years in your stomach legend. A huge number of Americans share the same childhood trauma swallowing gum and immediately panicking. Someone, usually an adult speaking with absolute confidence, would announce that the gum would stay in your stomach for 7 years. 7 years. Like a biological prison sentence. So there you are, freshly swallowed gum, imagining your stomach turning into a long-term Wrigley's storage facility. Here's the reality. Your digestive system is not that gullible. It's a professional processing line, not a museum for snacks. Yes, gum doesn't fully break down, but doesn't digest does not mean moves in and signs a lease. It passes through. Like everything else, one-way ticket, no return. Your body is not a parking lot for chewing gum. No temporary parking, no monthly pass, definitely no 7-year contract. Because if that myth were true, human stomachs would have fossilized by now, solidified by peppermint gum from 3rd grade. Story 4. Brown eggs, white eggs, and the color scam. A familiar grocery store moment. You're standing in front of the eggs section staring at 2 cartons that look almost identical, one white, one brown. The brown eggs cost more, and your brain immediately whispers, must be healthier. Why? Because they look more serious, more natural, very organic vibes. Marketing loves this trick. Change the color and the brain instantly switches to healthy mode. Same reason we trust anything labeled natural in a thin minimalist font, even when no one can explain what is natural about it. Here's the truth, brown eggs are not more nutritious than white eggs. The only difference is the chicken. Brown-feathered chickens lay brown eggs. White-feathered chickens lay white eggs. That's it. End of mystery. To put it simply, choosing brown eggs because you think they're healthier is like believing a red car goes faster than a white one. It feels logical, it is not. Gentle conclusion. If color determined nutrition, repainting your fridge would probably make you eat healthier too. Story 5. The 5-second rule when science takes a coffee break. The moment food hits the floor always happens in slow motion. A slice of pizza flips midair. A cookie makes contact. And your brain starts screaming, 5 seconds. 5 seconds, like you're defusing a bomb. This is when your brain enters negotiation mode with your conscience. The floor looks clean enough. You mopped yesterday. Surely the bacteria haven't had time to pack their bags. You bend down, pick it up, give it a little blow. The oldest purification ritual known to humanity. Bad news, bacteria do not count. They don't use stopwatches. There's no hold on, that was only 4.5 seconds. They're fast, efficient, and completely uninterested in whether you're hungry. The good news, everyone knows the 5-second rule is fake, and everyone still eats it anyway. Not because we lack information, but because sometimes the cookie wins. So you shrug, take the bite, and quietly hope your immune system is feeling productive today. Story 6. Reading in the dark, the great adult conspiracy. A classic childhood scene under the blanket, flashlight in hand, reading in secret after bedtime. Heart pounding, not because the story is intense, but because of that warning. Turn off the light, you'll ruin your eyes. It sounds serious, like you're about 3 pages away from permanent blindness. The truth is way less dramatic. Reading in the dark can make your eyes tired, dry, a little sore. Basically the same feeling as staring at a screen too long. But eye strain is not permanent damage. There's no scenario where you read Harry Potter under the covers for a week and wake up needing a guide dog. So why did adults say it with such confidence? Here's the twist. They weren't protecting your eyes, they were protecting their evening. Because a kid reading at 11 p.m. is a kid who refuses to sleep. So the real message was never "you'll damage your eyesight." It was "please go to sleep so the adults can have some peace." Story 7. Shaving and the turning into a werewolf myth. Almost everyone has heard or personally survived this dramatic warning. Don't shave, it'll grow back thicker and darker. So after your first shave, you stare intensely at that patch of skin like you're watching a slow burn horror movie. Wait, why does it look darker? Is it evolving? Relax, this story has way less drama. When you shave, you cut the hair at its thickest point, so when it grows back, the blunt end looks wider, stiffer, and more noticeable. That's it. The number of hairs doesn't increase, the color doesn't change. Your DNA does not secretly upgrade you into a nighttime creature. In other words, you are not turning into a werewolf. You're just seeing basic hair geometry doing its thing. Because if shaving actually made hair grow thicker, bald men would be shaved their heads into full recovery a long time ago. Story 8. Detox juice cleanses and the business of paying to be hungry. In the US, detox isn't a trend, it's a lifestyle. Colorful juices, pretty glass bottles, prices high enough to make you rethink your life choices. You drink celery, kale, ginger juice and tell yourself, "I am detoxing." Meanwhile, your body is detoxing your patience. Here's the less fun truth: your body already has a detox team. It's had one since birth. Their names are the liver and the kidneys. They work 24/7, no holidays, no subscriptions, no limited time 3-day cleanse. And they do their job very well as long as you feed them like a normal human. Juice cleanses don't make your liver better, they just make you hungrier, more tired, and weirdly irritable. The real irony: we spend a lot of money to not eat and then call it wellness. Because if detox actually worked the way ads claim hospitals would, we replaced doctors with juicers a long time ago. Story 9. Milk bones and the belief in absolute whiteness. A huge chunk of American childhood was raised on milk commercials. Smiling kids, white milk mustaches, crystal clear message: drink milk =, bones like concrete. Don't drink it. Good luck living with a skeleton made of cookies. Here's the problem. Bones don't work that simply. Calcium matters, sure, but it's not a solo superhero. Vitamin D, movement, hormones, overall nutrition. They all show up to work. Drinking milk while never moving does not make your bones stand up and applaud. The belief that milk alone makes bones strong is like believing buying expensive tires means you don't need to learn how to drive. Comforting, simple, wrong. Milk is an option, not a miracle. And if strong bones really came from drinking one single thing, gyms would be gone bankrupt a long time ago. Story 10. Sugar cavities and the real mastermind. Childhood logic was very simple. Eat candy, get cavities, see the dentist, lifelong trauma. Sugar was cast as the ultimate villain. Adults would sigh the moment candy appeared like you just signed a contract with tooth decay itself. But the truth is a little sneakier. Sugar doesn't sneak out at night and drill holes in your teeth. The real criminals are the bacteria already living in your mouth. They eat sugar, then they turn it into acid. And acid does not mess around. It slowly, patiently erodes tooth enamel, strategic, consistent, and very committed. In other words, your mouth is basically a tiny acid factory. Sugar is just the raw material. Bacteria run production. So the real issue isn't that you eat candy, it's that you leave the candy there and let bacteria throw an all-you-can-eat buffet. Because if sugar alone caused cavities, just looking at a donut would make your teeth file for resignation immediately. Story 11. Alcohol brain cells and that familiar wave of guilt. The moment you lift a glass of alcohol, a familiar voice pops into your head. Drinking this kills brain cells. And just like that, guilt shows up. You take a sip and immediately wonder, how many brain cells just died? One? Or did an entire group chat leave at once? Here's the less dramatic truth. Alcohol is not an action movie hitman going door to door executing brain cells. What it's actually great at is interference. Alcohol slows things down. It messes with communication between brain cells. It doesn't grab a knife and start stabbing neurons. Think of your brain like the internet. Drinking alcohol isn't cutting the fiber optic cable. It's more like bad Wi-Fi. Everything is still there. It just loads slower, the signal gets shaky, and your decisions become questionable. Heavy drinking over time. Yeah, that's a problem. No argument there. But one drink doesn't trigger an emergency brain cell funeral. If it did, every happy hour on Earth would be already caused humanity to forget how to use a spoon a long time ago. Story 12. Antibiotics. The flu and negotiating with your doctor. A familiar scene. You've got the flu. Your body hurts, your nose is leaking like a broken faucet. You go to the doctor with one clear goal: antibiotics. Not to ask, to demand. Because in your head the math is simple: sick equals sign, strong medicine equals sign antibiotics. Flawless logic. Emotionally, here's the problem. The flu is caused by a virus. Antibiotics only work on bacteria. Using antibiotics for the flu is like trying to unlock your fridge with car keys. Very determined, completely useless. Taking antibiotics when you don't need them won't make you recover faster. It just trains bacteria to become tougher in the future. So when you actually need antibiotics one day, those bacteria will look at you and go, "Oh, you again." In other words, antibiotics are not a reset health button. They're a serious tool, and using them wrong comes with long-term consequences. It's both funny and concerning we're firing cannons at invisible viruses. And cannons really don't like being misused. Story 13. Goldfish, 3 seconds, and a nationwide misunderstanding. Everyone's heard this line: goldfish only remember things for 3 seconds. And instantly, the image appears: a tiny bowl, a fish swimming in a circle like, wait, where am I? 3 seconds later, wait, where am I? An existential loop. Underwater edition. The truth: goldfish got framed. They can remember routes, recognize the person who feeds them, learn routines over time. Their memory lasts weeks, not a single breath. That tiny bowl isn't because goldfish are forgetful, it's because humans are lazy. Here's the slightly painful twist: while you think the goldfish remembers nothing, it remembers you. Your face, the time you show up, exactly who brings the food. In other words, the goldfish doesn't forget you after 3 seconds. It's just swimming by looking at you thinking, "Oh, it's this human again." Story 14. Penguins' loyalty and a slightly over-romanticized story. Penguins are often used as the ultimate symbol of perfect love. A pair standing together, snow falling. Very cinematic, very forever. The internet loves this idea. Because if a bird in a tuxedo can commit for life, then humans probably should try harder. Reality, however, is less rom-com. Many penguin species are only monogamous for the season. When breeding season ends and the next year brings someone with better chemistry, they switch partners. Some species even divorce regularly, especially if raising chicks didn't go well. No drama, no crying, just, yeah, this season didn't work. Sound familiar? It's basically modern dating. If it works, you stay. If it doesn't, you unlatch. Penguins aren't cheating, they're just practical. So next time you see a meme about penguins are loyal for life, remember this. They love deeply, they just also know when it's time to move on. Story 15. Cleopatra, the iPhone, and the timeline scam. Here's a fact that tends to short-circuit the brain for a few seconds. Cleopatra lived closer to the invention of the iPhone than to the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Yes, that is real, not a typo, not clickbait, just history casually wrecking your sense of time. The pyramids were built around 2500 BCE. Cleopatra was born in 69 BCE, which means that when Cleopatra was alive, the pyramids were already ancient, like using a landline ancient. Meanwhile, from Cleopatra to the iPhone is just over 2000 years, basically a blink on the human history timeline. Our brains love to shove ancient Egypt into one mental drawer as if all of it happened on the same sunny afternoon. History is not that tidy. It's long, messy, and full of moments that quietly mess with your assumptions. The real wow here is realizing this. When you think something happened a really long time ago, there's a solid chance you're completely wrong. And history, it's standing behind the pyramids smiling, watching you guess. Story 16. The Flat Earth, the Middle Ages, and a very long misunderstanding. There's a wildly popular belief people in the Middle Ages thought the Earth was flat. Like humanity back then was just walking around going careful on wrong step and you fall off the edge. Great meme material, completely wrong. In reality, humans have known the Earth is round since ancient Greece. Scholars calculated it, wrote about it, taught it. Medieval scholars read those texts, debated them, and passed them on. No one was raising a hand in class asking, so where exactly is the edge? And Christopher Columbus, he wasn't brave because he believed the Earth was round. Everyone already knew that. The real argument was about size. Columbus thought the Earth was much smaller than it actually is. Other scholars said no, it's bigger. Spoiler, the scholars were right. Here's the funny twist: Columbus didn't prove he was smarter than his time. He just gambled harder than math. So no, the Earth wasn't flat. But history often gets flattened because it's easier to tell the story that way. Story 17. Napoleon. The short guy and a 200-year smear campaign. In the collective imagination, Napoleon Bonaparte always shows up the same way. Tiny general, hands on hips, angry at the world because he's short. The image stuck so hard we literally got the term Napoleon complex. That is some elite level branding. Too bad it's wrong. In real life, Napoleon wasn't short at all. He stood around 5'6", 5'7", about 16'8", 170 cm, which was completely average for European men of his time. So where did the myth come from? Two main villains. First, British propaganda. His enemies really wanted him to look ridiculous. Nothing hurts a conqueror's image like making him look small. Second, a unit conversion mess. French feet weren't the same as British feet. Translate that wrong and congrats, you've just shrunk a man in history. Also didn't help that Napoleon was often photographed standing next to his imperial guard, absolute refrigerator-sized dudes. Anyone looks shorter next to that lineup. So for over 200 years, the world believed a perfectly executed smear campaign. Napoleon wasn't short, but the rumor that thing has had remarkable height. Story 18. The Great Wall, outer space, and the national did you know? There's a did you know fact so famous everyone's heard it at least once. You can see the Great Wall of China from space with the naked eye. It sounds epic, grand, perfect for ending a middle school presentation with confidence. And it's wrong. Here's the problem: space is really far away. The Great Wall is long, yes, but it's narrow, and it's basically the same color as the land around it. Put it this way, trying to spot an Earth-colored wall from hundreds of kilometers above Earth is less fun fact and more optical nightmare. The cleaner truth: from low Earth orbit, astronauts can see cities, highways, and glowing lights at night. The Great Wall. Not so much. Quick myth check: it's incredibly impressive, historically massive, architecturally wild. just not flashy enough to wave hello from outer space. Story 19. Owls' intelligence and a slightly crooked reputation. Owls have long been crowned the official symbol of intelligence. Big head, deep eyes, that serious face that looks like it's contemplating Greek philosophy. School logos, textbooks, Athena statues, owls everywhere. Elite branding. But the truth is a little less flattering. Owls aren't dumb, but they're not geniuses either. Their brains are relatively small, their structure is pretty simple, and their learning ability doesn't outperform birds like crows or parrots. What makes owls impressive isn't intelligence. It's hardware. They see incredibly well in the dark. Their ears sit at different heights to pinpoint sound with insane accuracy. Their heads rotate nearly 270 degrees. In short, they're a living sensor system. Think of it this way, an owl isn't a university professor. It's a high-end security camera with feathers. Looks wise, works flawlessly, but mostly for hunting, not for solving equations. Story 20. Flamingos' pink feathers and the very dietary truth. The pink flamingo is burned into pop culture. Standing on one leg, elegant, bright pink like it came pre-photoshopped. Instant icon, instant confidence in its own color palette. But the truth is less mythical. Flamingos are not born pink. When they hatch, they're gray, dull, extremely average looking. The pink shows up later, and the reason lives entirely in their stomach. A flamingo's diet algae, tiny shrimp crustaceans, is packed with carotenoids. Their bodies process those pigments and dye their feathers pink. Eat the right menu. You glow. Eat less of it. You fade. The message here is brutally simple. You are what you eat. Flamingos aren't living their authentic truth. They're just eating the correct food. And honestly, if humans changed color based on diet after a few weeks of fast food, the world would become a very interesting place to look at. Story 21. Fortune cookies? Ancient Chinese tradition and a very American twist. The familiar scene: you finish a meal at an American-style Chinese restaurant. The server drops off a small, crunchy cookie with a slip of paper inside. You crack it open. Read something like, "A great opportunity is coming." And your brain automatically goes, wow, Chinese culture is deep. Plot twist. Fortune cookies are not a Chinese tradition. They don't show up in ancient history, not in festivals, not in holidays. In fact, in China, most people have no idea what a fortune cookie even is. The origin: America. They were developed by Japanese immigrants and Asian Americans, then quietly adopted by American Chinese restaurants. After World War II, anything associated with Japan was avoided. So the fortune cookie changed nationalities silently. Here's the very American twist. A cookie invented in the US believed to be Chinese, used to deliver vague life advice, and trusted by everyone anyway. In other words, fortune cookies don't predict the future. They just predict that you'll believe them. Story 22. Coffee beans: a misleading name, and your morning cup of hot fruit. Your morning coffee looks serious, dark, adult, responsible, and you confidently call what's in it a coffee bean. Very nut-like, very bean-coated, very not fruit. Here's the betrayal. Coffee beans are not beans. They're the seeds of a fruit called the coffee cherry. On the tree, coffee looks like small red cherries. Inside each one, 2 little seeds, the things you roast, grind, and emotionally depend on all day. So biologically speaking, you're not drinking beans in the morning. You're drinking hot fruit. Does that make it healthier? No, it's still caffeine. But next time someone tells you to eat more fruit, you can look at your coffee, nod calmly, and say, "I already am." Story 23. Bulls: the color red, and a very dramatic misunderstanding. The classic image lives rent-free in everyone's head: a bullfight. The matador waves a red cape. The bull loses its mind and charges like its ancestors were personally insulted. Conclusion: bulls hate red. Except they don't. Bulls are actually red color blind. Their vision is closer to black and white. The red cape doesn't trigger rage. What triggers it is movement. Fabric flying, arms waving, things shaking aggressively in their face. Bull brain goes, "That thing is provoking me." Swap the red cape for blue-yellow or a soft, calming pastel, wave it hard enough, and the result is exactly the same. To put it simply, humans work the same way. You don't jump because of someone's shirt color. You jump because something suddenly moves into your personal space. So no bulls don't have beef with the color red. They're just reacting on pure instinct. Kind of like you when someone waves their hands in your face while you're already exhausted. Story 24. Carrots night vision and a wartime scam. Everyone's heard this one: eat carrots and you'll see in the dark. Sounds like unlocking a superpower. Eat enough and boom. No flashlight, no Google Maps, just glowing eyes cutting through the night. The origin of this story has nothing to do with nutrition. It's wartime propaganda. During World War II, Britain wanted to hide its new radar technology. So they spread a convenient story their pilots were shooting so accurately because they ate a lot of carrots. And just like that, the world believed vitamin A turns humans into nocturnal predators. The truth is much simpler. Vitamin A helps keep your eyes healthy. If you're deficient, your vision gets worse. But once you've had enough, there's no bonus level. No night vision upgrade. The human body doesn't have a dark mode enhancement setting. In other words, carrots won't turn you into Batman. They just keep you from being malnourished. Because if carrots really gave night vision, traffic cones would have gone extinct a long time ago. Story 25, 80% of heat your head and the classic parent warning. Everyone grew up hearing this, usually yelled from behind, "Put a hat on, you lose 80% of your heat through your head." It sounds serious, like your head is a biological chimney. No hat equals sign you've chosen hypothermia. The truth is far less dramatic. Your body loses heat from any exposed area: head, hands, feet, neck. The head isn't special. It just happens to be the part people forget to cover. If you go outside wearing a thick winter jacket, but shorts bad news, your legs are working overtime as heat radiators. Here's the funny twist. We don't get cold because our heads are magical heat-leaking machines. We get cold because we dress badly. In other words, wearing a hat while forgetting pants isn't staying warm. It's winter fashion designed to challenge physics. Story 26. Sitting too close to the TV and the household scream, a classic childhood scene. For a lot of people, you're sitting way too close to the TV, eyes wide, face so near it's basically trying to merge with the screen. And then from behind the all-powerful shout, "Move back, you'll ruin your eyes." It sounds like the TV is slowly grinding down your eyeballs, and that 30 centimeters is the thin line between normal vision and Coke bottle glasses. The truth is much simpler. Sitting close to the TV doesn't permanently damage your eyes. It just makes them tired the same way reading tiny text too long or staring at your phone without blinking does. Tired eyes recover. Nothing burns, nothing cracks, nothing explodes. So why did adults always yell, "Here's the familiar twist"? They weren't worried about your eyes, they were worried about the TV. Because if you sit too close and accidentally bump it, the first thing to break is not your vision. And they knew it. Story 27. Charging overnight phone batteries and a very modern anxiety. A familiar modern habit. Plug in your phone, place it next to the bed, sleep for a solid 8 hours. And immediately the warning voice kicks in. Charging overnight ruins the battery. Like the battery is suffering in silence all night, whispering, "Please unplug me." The truth is, modern batteries are smarter than we think. Today's smartphones have built-in protections. They stop pulling power when the battery is full. They regulate the current. They don't get force-fed electricity until they explode at 3 a.m. That said, the myth isn't completely fake. Lithium-ion batteries don't love being held at 100% for very long periods, especially when heat is involved. That can slowly degrade the battery over time. Not instantly, it won't die overnight, it just ages a little faster. So here's the real takeaway. Charging overnight won't kill your battery immediately, it just makes it slightly more tired in the long run. Kind of like people, staying up late once won't kill you, but do it every night and no one's waking up happy. Story 28. Wet hair, cold weather, and a multi-generation warning. This belief gets passed down like family heirloom advice, usually delivered with concern. Dry your hair before going outside or you'll catch a cold. You've just showered, your hair is still wet. You step into cold air and suddenly it feels like you just signed up for a runny nose. But here's the reality, colds don't work like that. You don't get sick from being cold, you get sick from viruses. Wet hair doesn't magically create bacteria or viruses. It just makes you feel colder and more uncomfortable. Here's the subtle part. Cold weather can slightly weaken your immune response, and it also keeps people indoors where viruses throw their best end-of-year parties. So illness shows up and wet hair gets blamed. The classic scenario, you go out with wet hair sneeze the next day and the entire family goes, "See, we told you." Meanwhile, the virus is standing in the corner quietly nodding while no one mentions it at all. Story 29. Glass old churches and a very slippery misunderstanding. You've probably heard this one before. Glass is actually a liquid that flows very slowly. The evidence always sounds convincing. Old church windows thicker at the bottom than the top. And then the conclusion drops. See, the glass has been flowing downward for hundreds of years. It sounds scientific, a little mysterious, very satisfying. Here's the historical twist. Glass does not flow. It's a solid, a stubborn one, solid in the most literal sense. What you're seeing in old churches isn't glass slowly melting over centuries. It's old manufacturing. Back then, making perfectly flat glass was extremely hard. So when builders installed windows, they put the thicker side at the bottom for stability. That's it. No glass river, no silent dripping through time, no medieval lava lamp. What's actually happening is modern eyes looking at old craftsmanship and overthinking it just a bit. So no glass isn't slowly crawling downward. The past just didn't have Photoshop-level precision yet. Story 30. The Eiffel Tower, an unchanging icon that quietly moves. In our heads, the Eiffel Tower stands there as something permanent. Day after day, year after year, rain, sun, seasons changing, the tower rocks solid, unbothered, basically daring physics to try something. Except it's not actually standing still. When its hot metal expands, when its cold metal contracts. In summer, the top of the Eiffel Tower can be several centimeters taller than it is in winter. No shaking, no announcement, no drama. It just changes, quietly. Think of it like a stuck jar lid. Run it under hot water, suddenly it opens. Materials respond to temperature, steel included. The Eiffel Tower is simply doing what steel does. Here's the twist. Paris's most unchanging symbol is also one of its most consistently flexible ones. So now the Eiffel Tower hasn't lost its identity. It just adapts to the weather. Kinda like us, just taller, more famous, and way less complain about it. Story 31. Sushi, raw fish, and a global misunderstanding. A lot of people are absolutely convinced of one thing. Sushi means raw fish. Here's sushi and the brain jumps straight to cold, raw slices of fish staring back at you like a direct challenge to your immune system. And if you don't eat raw fish, the conclusion is immediate. Yeah, I can't eat sushi. Here's the gentle plot twist. Sushi does not mean raw fish. Sushi actually means vinegared rice. That's it. That's the definition. The rice is the main character. Fish, eggs, meat, vegetables, those are just toppings. You can eat sushi with zero raw fish involved and still be 100% correct. Inari, tamayo, fully cooked rolls, all real sushi. Raw fish became famous because it works, it tastes good, and people kept using it. Then the human brain did what it does best, simplified the concept until it fit in one sentence. And just like that sushi equals sign, raw fish was born. Not true, just repeated long enough to sound true. If you realized you once believed one or many of the stories in this series, here's the good news. You're not stupid. You're just doing exactly what the human brain is designed to do. Believe things that get repeated confidently enough. We don't live on absolute truth. We live on simplified truth. The kind that's easy to remember, easy to retell, and sounds reasonable. And once enough people believe it, it quietly upgrades into everyone knows that. The point of these stories wasn't to prove you wrong. It was to remind you that gentle skepticism is a life skill. So, if there's a myth you used to believe, argued about, or just recently realized, wait, I actually believed that, drop it in the comments. Because chances are that's the next story.